Hey dudes, and welcome back to The Bants. As always, I am your host, The Bants, and here we are once again, as you can see up here once again. And if you have checked the date, then yes, it is finally time for our second Designer Toy Tuesday. And as a quick refresher for those of you who might be joining us for the first time or might have forgotten since our last video, this is our usually monthly toy show where we discuss new releases, upcoming releases, pre-orders, and the occasional toy festival that happens all over the world, really. This video is also going to be separated into three major sections, the first of which being Western licensed toys. That means that it doesn't matter where the producer is, whether in the States, Europe, Asia, anywhere else in the world. If it has to do with Western licensing, that being comics, DC, Marvel, cartoons, whatever, it's going to be in this section. Then we have our second major section, which of course on the flip side is Eastern licensed toys. That means anything revolving around anime, manga, Eastern video game companies, anything like that will be in this section here. And last and especially not least, we have our third category, which is of course our designer toy category. Doesn't matter if it's a vinyl, a sofubi, a statuette, whatever. If it's made by an independent company, them being big or small, designer, painter, regular toy maker, whatever, it will be covered in this section here. And if you aren't necessarily a fan of all three major categories, that's completely fine. If you check the description down below, I have timestamped where all three categories begin, so you can skip around as much as you want. But now, with all that said, let's just get right into it. And starting off our Western licenses, once again, McFarlane Toys is back with action figures from their newest series, and that is, of course, the recently released Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Now, if you are at all familiar with McFarlane Toys, you'll know that this is by no means their first attempt at action figures from an FPS series, having done Halo for God knows how many years, like 5 to 7 years, ranging through pretty much all of the main series of games. And it looks like they took all the knowledge and experience from those years and applied it to these figures here. We have some relatively decent sized figures with some pretty nice detailing and painting, especially for their prices, which is very similar to the Halo prices, which is of course between $15 and $25. Plus we see a decent amount of articulation and accessories for these figures, so whether you are a fan of Call of Duty as a franchise or just a fan of military action figures in general, either way, these are definitely worth a look. Then brand Hot Toys showed off some of their newest collections at the China International Comics Expo, and just as expected from Hot Toys, these are absolutely amazing. Starting off with their comic book figures, we see a slew, and I mean literally dozens of different action figures from recently released Marvel movies. I'm talking Avengers, I'm talking Ant-Man and Wasp, I'm talking Black Panther, Spider-Man, and many more on top of that. And then on the flip side, we saw a whole bunch of figures from the Star Wars series, mainly from the classic series, but there are also some from the prequels as well. And then even further on, we saw some more one-off figures from series such as Batman and The Matrix. And I just gotta say, really a job well done to Hot Toys here, just on selection alone. But then moving on to the individual pieces themselves, I mean, what more can I say? It's obviously Hot Toys and therefore incredible. The paint jobs are great, the details are spot on, everything about these pieces is just so well done and so well thought out. Are these pieces expensive? Of course they are, but are they worth it? Absolutely. So if you're interested in either of these major series or also want to see some more photos of the other one-off series they did, I would highly recommend looking at this. Then Kotobukiya showed off some of their newest statuettes from their X-Men 92 series, and really it can't get more nostalgic than this. For those of you unaware, Kotobukiya has already started releasing these statuettes based off of the X-Men animated series from back in 1992. Having started off a couple months ago with a 2-pack of Wolverine and Jubilee, followed by another 2-pack a little bit more recently of Cyclops and Beast. This month we're seeing the release of Professor X, and then early on next year we're seeing another 2-pack, this time of Rogue and Gambit. And although yes, it does suck that there is no articulation in these pieces, because once again they are statuettes, and that's really mostly what Kotobukiya does, these pieces still look amazing and very true to the detail of the series, so that also explains why they're not as realistic and instead are more cartoony. But even so, for the prices here, the 2-packs being in the around $90 range and the single figures being more in the $60 range, it's really hard to beat. And if you are a fan of that series or just have that cartoon nostalgia in general, then I definitely check these out. And lastly, we see once again Kidrobot collaborating with Adult Swim on a bunch of new toys for a bunch of different series. We see a bunch of larger one-off pieces from series such as Robot Chicken, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Rick and Morty, and a few more, plus the inclusion of the second series of the Adult Swim minifigure blind box collection, once again done in that very Kidrobot-esque style. So if you want to check out some of the larger pieces here or see a full list of all the figures in the blind box set, I definitely check this out as well. Okay, and now moving on to our Eastern licenses. First up, let's take a look at all the new pre-orders out of Good Smile Company. Starting off with their Nendoroids, we saw a first look at some new figurines from the Fate series, such as Saber and Lancer. Then moving on, we saw some new figurines from the Harry Potter series. Yes, I know Harry Potter is a Western license, but these are done in a chibi form, so I'm allowing it. Starting off with just Harry for now, although we did get to see a sneak peek of a Ron and Hermione Nendoroid coming out fairly soon as well. And just in time for Halloween, a Jack Skellington Nendoroid as well, once again chibi. And although this won't be released until sometime mid next year, at least you can pre-order it in time for Halloween, so I guess that's something. Then moving on to their Figma line, first up we got to see the release of some more Berserk figures, and I am super excited about this. Although the first figure they showed off, Griffith, is not a new figure, it is just a re-release, they did show off a new version of Guts in Berserker armor. This is the Skull edition, and what can you say? This thing is just fucking awesome. And last but not least, we saw a pre-order go up for everybody's favorite virtual YouTuber, Kizuna AI, complete of course with all of her many different facial expressions, so be on the lookout for that as well. Then moving on now to Banpresto, we see ourselves once again saturated with more Dragon Ball figures. I know, surprise, surprise. Although some of the figurines here from the Masterlise collection, which I'm sure I pronounced incorrectly, are kind of cool, the ones I really wanted to talk about were the Grandista Manga Dimensions figurines, because holy hell, just take a look at these things. Although the Goku one released earlier this year, the Vegeta one here that I'm showing just dropped, and really this picture doesn't do it justice. If you're a fan of Dragon Ball, or if you're a fan of really interesting paint jobs on figures, do yourself a favor, check these out. It is by far some of the best and most interesting paint jobs I have seen on any figure in a long time. And lastly, Square Enix's PlayArt Sky showed off some new releases from their Final Fantasy collection, specifically Final Fantasy VII. We got to see the release of an Aerith action figure, as well as a Cloud and Fenrir action figure to go along with it, and although I'm pretty sure the Aerith is a re-release, I'm not so sure about the Cloud and Fenrir. I know it's been done before, although something about the Fenrir here feels a little bit different from the original release, so don't quote me on that. Either way, it is nice to see the release or re-release of both of these figures, because the original line of the Final Fantasy collection sold out many years ago and drove the prices of these figures way up online, way too high. So the fact that these are going back to their original MSRP is super cool in my opinion. Also, for those of you who might not be as well versed in the PlayArt Sky series, I highly recommend it personally. Not sure if you can see it on camera, but I do own a couple myself, and I have sold and purchased many more otherwise. for their price, which is usually in like the 80 to 120 category. The articulation, accessories on these things is very well done. The paint jobs are very nice as well, and the detail is pretty good too. So as far as this price range goes, if you're looking for figures in these series, definitely check out PlayArts Kai and definitely be on the lookout for these. Alright guys, with those two categories now done, let's move on to our favorite section, that being of course the designer toy section. And before we even get into the individual toys themselves, I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you didn't see it, last week was the Taipei Toy Festival. So if you do want to see more from that festival, which I wasn't able to get to in this video, definitely check it out on Instagram. There's a bunch of cool stuff out there. But now moving on into the brands and toys themselves. First up, J Studio showed off some of their newest works at the Taipei Toy Festival, and these are great. They're just really great. We got to see new versions of their most renowned Monkey King figure and Derek figure, plus other new works and variants as well. Plus we got to see the pre-order go up for their Kong and 6 2-pack figures, and even though personally these aren't for me, they're not really my style, I think these are just gorgeous. They're so well done, they're so creative. The fact that they have interchangeable parts to them just adds to the appeal, and really, if you are a fan of this style, definitely check this out, although I can't say for certain that the pre-order will still be up by the time you get a chance to look at them. Then for those of you out there who are fans of Coarse Toys, I just wanted to give you all a little bit of a reminder. About a month ago was BTS, the Beijing Toy Show, and during that time Coarse released some new colorways on their Jaws and Aura figures. However, these designs were not limited to BTS, as Coarse had said that in the next coming weeks they would be releasing a few of these variants online as well. Well, it's now been a few weeks, so definitely be on the lookout for these going up on Coarse Life sometime in the relatively near future. And speaking of some very hard to get releases, 1000 Toys also showed up to the Taipei Toy Festival with some new releases of their Toa Heavy Industry synthetic humans, and really, what more can I say? Jeez, like I already haven't said that 3 or 4 times in this video. If you have an opportunity to get these, get them. For those of you who don't know 1000 Toys, let me just give you a quick rundown. They've been around now for a handful of years, a decent handful of years, and they mainly specialize in these more sci-fi, really detailed figurines, most of which come from the manga series Blam and other works by Japanese manga artist Nihei. And I have to say, pretty much hands down, when it comes to detailed pieces, and more specifically articulation of action figures, 1000 Toys is far and above, miles and miles above the rest. If you don't believe me, go online and check out some of the original product images of these synthetic humans. It's just mind-blowing, the amount of posability that these guys really have, and the amount of detail that went into sculpting these works of literal art that are just made into action figures. But my main point with all this is, now that the Taipei Toy Fest is now over, that of course means that there are more of these synthetic humans in the wild, so be sure to check all of your auction houses, your eBays, whatever, for these figures coming online sometime in the near future. And speaking of the cyberpunk genre, if you're looking for something maybe a little bit more lighthearted than what 1000 Toys has out there, I would definitely check out the newest pre-order for Delva Toys' newest pieces, that being Carbine and D13. What we see here are two pieces that feel very reminiscent of something that 3A might do if 3A preferred to do more clean figures instead of what they're known for doing. They're super creative in their designs, they're very detailed all the way down to the pieces of apparel they're wearing. They come with a range of different accessories that all look very nice as well. They're all super posable too, and especially for two figures here, they're definitely not breaking any budgets. So if you definitely are a fan of a little bit more of a happier cyberpunk motif, I would definitely check these out as well. Then for something completely different, we saw the release of the new Hench figure by Fowler and Superplastic, and I just love this thing. Pete's art being very vibrant and clean and smooth just comes across fantastic in this figure. And if you're looking at this figure and feeling somewhat nostalgic because it somewhat reminds you of something you might have seen released 10-15 years ago, well, you'd be correct, but that's mainly because of the people behind Superplastic. You see, Superplastic's only been around for about a year now, and it was originally started by Paul Budnitz, and if that name sounds familiar, you'd be correct, because he also started Kidrobot. He's also enlisted the help of Huck G, who you might remember for his really renowned Skullhead figures, to help run the production on this company. So with their two minds in this, it's really not that hard to see why this figure turned out the way it did, aside from Pete's art, obviously. So if you're a fan of this figure as much as I am, I would definitely check this out. And if you are a fan of this style, or even that old Kidrobot style, I definitely keep an eye out for Superplastic in the future. And honestly guys, there is a whole bunch more that I really wanted to talk about. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time and daylight, as you can possibly see. So once again, let me reiterate, if you do want to see a lot more of really cool and interesting and exciting things and young artists out of the Taipei Toy Festival, definitely check out Instagram. There's just a whole myriad of really amazing stuff out there. But I do have time for two last stories, so let's just burn through these. First up, because I didn't get a chance to talk about any last time, at least if memory serves me, let's go over some of the new Bearbrick releases. First up, we got to see their newest collaboration they did with Jackson Pollock, and I'll be honest here, I'm not a huge fan of this colorway. They've done some really amazing Jackson Pollock Bearbricks in the past, and I definitely recommend checking those out, but as far as this one goes, it's just not for me. Then we got to see their newest collaboration with A Bathing Ape for Bape's 25th anniversary, and they're pretty good overall. Although we did see some very high-end collaborative pieces come out of this collection, such as this ready-made Bearbrick, which is well beyond a pretty penny. Some of the more kind of, I guess you could say, toned down 25th anniversary Bearbricks, such as this one here, really suit my taste, and although not super crazy for Bape, I still think are very nicely done, and if you're a fan of either brand, definitely check into these. And the last but definitely not least, how could I not cover the first ever Ryan Mcginness Bearbrick? Holy fuck, is this thing amazing. I'm not gonna fangirl out here too much, but let's just say Ryan Mcginness is definitely one of my favorite artists of not even this generation, but pretty much all time, and I'm super stoked to see him finally get a Bearbrick, even though he really should have got one about 10 years ago. And also, if any of you can possibly find this for under $200, please let me know. I really don't want to have to deal with resellers on this, and it's pretty much sold out everywhere online already, and yeah, it would just be a huge help to me, and I'd be super grateful. So if you happen to be on the lookout for this, see if you can find a second one as well. And lastly, and I am super stoked about this is why I saved it for the end, Oddworx showed off a sneak peek of their newest season of the Adorable Circle of Life. If you haven't seen these pieces before, go back and check them out. They're originally pieces of art turned into these toys here, and I just love the concept of how cute and how gory they are, and they've honestly, the old seasons have been sold out for years and years and years, and you will never find them resold online because, I mean, just look, they're super fucking cool. So the fact that we're getting to see a new season, a new series of this, I'm super hyped, and once we get any more information on this, believe me, I'll let you know first. Alright guys, and with that we come to the end of our second Designer Toy Tuesday. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always with all of my videos, if you want to see some more photos I wasn't able to include from some of these series, or just learn more about them in general, I've linked everything I've talked about in the description down below. And if you are new to the channel, then welcome. We are mainly a fashion focused channel, but we also do these toy videos usually once a month, so if you're a fan of either, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, if you just have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to talk either fashion or toys in general, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I'm always willing and eager to talk about both. And thank you all once again for watching these videos and supporting my content. I hope you all have a fantastic couple weeks until I see you next, and as always, until next time.